We try to make this program short and sweet, and it's been a nice holiday tradition. Has been for me, because I see some of you coming in with your sons now or friends every year, and that makes us feel really good about doing events like this one. This will be the first of two events we have on campus today. At 11:30, we'll have the college-age MBA alumni come out to have lunch here, and mainly it's fun for them to see one another, and we'll show them a little bit of a video and then take them on a tour of the campus. But after this program, Robert Sawyer's here. Where's Robert? I can't see him from here, but he's right outside. Well, he will show he'll take anyone out to the football field who wants to go, because our team is practicing. They are miraculously in the state championship for the fifth in 6 years. Fifth time in 6 years, and is particularly miraculous this year because they started out 1-3, and everyone, I think, had given up on us, except they hadn't given up on themselves, and the team and the students hadn't. We had incredible support throughout the year, and they turned their season around to be 8-4 now, and so we're excited about that event. And so Robert, who's on my right now, would be glad to walk anybody out to the field for a few minutes if you'd like to watch the team practice. This is MBA's 153rd year. To give you some context, since you're not here every day, we now have almost 800 students at MBA. To put that into other context for you, my first year was 1994. We had 530 students. So we've grown almost by 270 students. That says a lot about Nashville. I think it says something about the school and its strength. I think the smartest thing we've done in that period of time, looking back now, it's fun to have some historical perspective. I'd say the best thing MBA's done is that we've figured out we're going to win if we are about ourselves and we don't try to play into any kind of competition. The more we think about how to develop boys, the more we think about what is the best programs for this school and this community, the stronger we seem to become. And the more we think about hiring people who fit the mission of this school, the better we do. And we've done really well. We used to have, when I arrived, 30 acres on this campus. We now have 50 on the Harding Road campus. We've been fortunate to buy properties really all around the perimeter of MBA. We recently purchased the parking lot at Vine Street Christian Church. We then converted that parking lot into MBA's parking lot. We purchased all the homes on Brighton Road behind the school on the south side here, and then converted that into an internal road for MBA. We purchased some other homes on the east side of MBA, and so consequently we now have 50 acres here. We also purchased in 2004 10 acres of property in Sylvan Park, the old Omen Construction Company. That was probably MBA's best business decision ever. That property we bought around $2 million. It's probably valued about 7-8 times that now. Then we were given over 200 acres of property about an hour and a half from here near McMinnville. So we've expanded the campus from 30 acres to 50 here now, 10 in Sylvan Park, over 200 on this mountaintop. And we've also built some infrastructure at that mountaintop which will make a significant difference. When I arrived, we had about 85 faculty and staff. We now have 150. So MBA is a more complex place. But what is not complex is the mission. And that's been clear and defined and prioritized over that period of time. We've been really proud of a number of programs at school. Debate is, for the 4th year in a row, ranked #1 in the country. And that is of all schools, large and small, private and public. Our football team, as I've already mentioned, has done really well. But by far, the thing I'm most proud of is the culture. You will never have, I don't think, a really strong family, a strong organization, a strong school unless you have a clearly defined culture. And what is clear about the culture here is that whether a boy is interested in making videos, whether he's interested in playing jazz, whether he's interested in debate, whether he's interested in playing out on these fields, it's all important. And the boys know that. And when the boys know that, that's what defines the culture. You'll hear me say some brief things about that at the end of the program, but to give you just a little bit more music before I introduce our distinguished honored guest, the headmaster singers are going to come in and perform here on my right. They're going to sing a song that I liked, that they performed recently in an assembly, and I lobbied them to come in on their first day of vacation at 7:30 in the morning. And I told them they didn't have to dress in a coat and tie, but they showed up. It's a surprise that you join me in welcoming the headmaster singers as they sing Unsteady. Wait just a second. So I just want to thank them publicly. The soloist behind me is John Thornton. He has truly found his voice, so to speak, and has really loved singing and does it all the time. I don't really ever try to bribe them, but I do ask them to sing all the time, as they would tell you. But I'm treating them to Waffle House this morning, so they're leaving to go to Waffle House afterwards. I think you'll be pleased to know I just tried to look quickly at the group. Some of them play football, right? Some are really involved in theater. Some are involved in debate. Some are involved in baseball. What else should I tell them? Wrestling. Rock climbing. Track. So it's nice, as I said earlier, in terms of culture, that you see this cross-section of interest and embracing those interests. Thank you very much. So we're going to recognize two individuals this morning. First, the Reverend Gordon Peerman, who receives our Distinguished Service Award. Gordon's a 1969 graduate of MBA. He also holds degrees from the University of Virginia and Yale Divinity School and Vanderbilt Divinity School. He began the St. Thomas Mindfulness-based stress reduction program in 1997, along with our graduate and former board member, Dr. Roy Elam. He has practiced and taught contemplative prayer for over 40 years. He's the author of Blessed Relief, What Christians Can Learn from Buddhists About Suffering, and the upcoming book, The Body Knows the Way, Coming Home Through the Dark Night. He's co-founder of the Nashville Food Project, along with Brother Bill Peerman, Rob Barrick, both of whom are here, and Barry Holt. The project shares more than 5,000 wealthy, made-from-scratch meals and snacks with communities across Nashville. He's an associate priest at St. Augustine's Chapel at Vanderbilt. He leads perennial wisdom retreats with Rabbi Rami Shapiro at St. Mary's Sewanee, as well as contemplative kayaking retreats in Southeast Alaska in the summer. He's currently fulfilling a shared dream with Dr. Elam to offer some systematic and rigorous training in mindfulness at MBA and to nourish the virtues of attentiveness, kindness, and resilience in the student body and the faculty. Please join me in honoring and welcoming Gordon Peerman.
Well, the thing that makes me happiest about this morning is that my two grandsons are here, Hugo Ward and Cecil Ward. So I'm going to put y'all on the spot and ask you to stand up and turn around and wave to these people. So, you know, Hugo and Cecil, it's a little bit embarrassing to be singled out sometimes. And I was embarrassed, really embarrassed, when Brad called me to tell me about this morning. And then I was kind of secretly pleased about it all, and I wanted to tell everybody I knew. I got home from San Francisco last night about 10:30 and started working on my remarks. I was pleased about this award until I saw that I was supposed to make some remarks. This is kind of like the bad old days of writing a theme from English class on the night before. The Quakers have a saying. They say, don't speak unless you can improve on the silence. That pretty much concludes my remarks. So maybe only music and poetry can improve on the silence. And here's a poem I like by William Stafford. He was a former poet laureate of the United States. It's called The Way It Is. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread. But it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt, people die. You suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. So, what's the thread for you? There's the thread. Here's a little experiment in consciousness. The way that we are wired up is that there's me over here and you over there, and where we all live is somewhere behind our eyes, right? Einstein called this the optical delusion of separation. Me over here, you over there, and we're separate from each other. There is a different, non-diluted kind of consciousness, and I think this is where service comes from. My wife, Kathy Woods, put it this way. Her favorite mantra when she was head of the lower school at university school was, "We're all in this together." We're all in this together. If you think about it, it's true. And it's really worth remembering at this particular point in our history. So what is this that we are all in together? To answer this question, we can do what artists call a figure ground shift. It's kind of a rotation in consciousness. Normally, what we notice is the stuff of perception. Sounds, sights, outer stuff, and then inner stuff, thoughts and feelings. What we usually don't notice is the space in which stuff is. We don't usually notice the silence that sound comes out of. So I want you to do something a little bit unusual. I want you to notice not just me up here talking, but I want you to notice the space in which we all are. You will see that we are all in this background space together. Everything you know is in the space of your consciousness. Philosophers call this being aware of awareness itself. The mystics across human and spiritual experience have an intuition that this awareness, this space, is one big consciousness. Whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it the source or the force or spirit or God or Allah or Brahman or Tao or Great Spirit, whatever name you want to call it. The Jewish tradition has it best. They say there's no name for it. It is nameless. But the mystics all agree across the spiritual traditions that one name for it is love. Brad likes to remind me that this is the juice that makes MBA run. Kabir Hilminsky is a modern Sufi mystic, and he calls this love the connective tissue of the universe, which is another way of saying we are all in this loving awareness together. Service, whatever form it takes, is simply the practical application of this intuition. I think service is really just doing what you love. And it's what you love. It's your thread. It's not somebody else's thread. The great Presbyterian writer and teacher Frederick Buechner said, your vocation is where your gift intersects with what the world needs. Everybody here serves. Nobody more than anybody else. My grandsons serve me by loving me the way they do. We serve best by our being, and secondarily by our doing. Here's a poem a final poem by Rumi, who was a 13th century Sufi mystic. He was a contemporary and soul brother to St. Francis of Assisi. This poem is called Two Kinds of Intelligence. There are two kinds of intelligence. One acquired, as a child in school memorizes facts and concepts from books and from what the teacher says, collecting information from the traditional sciences and from the new sciences. With such intelligence, you rise in the world. You get ranked ahead of or behind others in regard to your competence in retaining information. You stroll with this intelligence in and out of fields of knowledge, getting always more marks on your preserving tablets. There is another kind of tablet, one already completed and preserved inside you. A spring overflowing its spring box. A freshness in the center of the chest. This other intelligence does not turn yellow or stagnate. It's fluid, and it doesn't move from outside to inside through the conduits of plumbing learning. This second knowing is a fountainhead from within you, moving out. So just one final thought. I live in the neighborhood. I walked over here this morning, and on Sunday mornings I really like to come over here and walk through the grounds when nobody much is around. And when I do, I remember my friends here. Friends like Mac Perkle and Rob Barrick and Whit Clark and Barry Banker and Bill Husband and Peter Power and on and on and on. And I remember our teachers. I remember Ms. Bowen and Mr. Bennett and Ms. Swint and Mr. Poston and Mr. Knighton and Ms. Carter and Mr. Carter and Ms. Hollins and of course Coach Owen. They're all here with me. I feel them here today. How fortunate I am to have known them. Thank you.
He mentioned the word love because he spoke a year or two ago at some event here, and he said, I'm going to talk about a word you seldom hear at MBA, and he said love. And I got up after he spoke and I said, well, actually, Gordon, I hear that word all the time. Just to give you some context, yesterday morning a parent walked into my office, and I was with my advisees, and they asked me who he was, and I told them, and two boys immediately said, I love his son. And I just paused to, hear that word. And when our football coach got up with all the other coaches the other day at assembly, I was telling Gordon, when he started out talking, he said, there's one word that turned it all around, love. And it is sort of a juice, as you said. It is a thread. It is part of the culture, which makes a difference. You also mentioned that the Carters. Recently, I acquired a painting from Ann Carter Brothers, to give to Brownlee Curry. It was a painting of the gymnasium. The gym was built in 1957, so it served MBA for over 60 years, but we're going to tear it down next December. And in fact, I was thinking this morning I'm going to scare the project manager at the building site, because I'm going to tell him that I want to do this event in the new event center next December. That's going to put some pressure on him. So I handed it to Brownlee, the painting, and Ann had written a card to him, and she wrote in the card that when she married Nick Carter, thought you'd like this story. My wife smiled when I read it to her. When she married Nick Carter, she knew she was destined to leave cocktail parties early and to stay in gyms late. But what an era of all those people Gordon remembered. I'm glad to inherit that. Vice Admiral John Mazach, class of 1962, MBA's 2019 Distinguished Alumnus. He's also a 1966 graduate of Vanderbilt University Naval ROTC program. Upon graduation, he entered the U.S. Navy in flight training at Pensacola, Florida as an ensign. During his 33-year naval career, he served as a naval aviator, flying Navy fighter and attack aircraft from numerous aircraft carriers starting in the Vietnam conflict. He commanded the aircraft carrier USS America, CV-66, during the First Gulf War, and then served as a carrier battle group commander. Overall, he has flown from 6 different carrier decks in several different aircraft types, making over 1,000 career landings. Ashore, he served in Washington, Montgomery, Alabama, Stuttgart, Germany, and Norfolk, Virginia on various staffs. He retired from the Navy as Commander, Naval Air Force's U.S. Atlantic Fleet as a Vice Admiral and was still actively flying until his retirement. Following his naval service, he joined Northrop Grumman Corporation and served in Florida and later in Washington, D.C. His last 5 years with Northrop Grumman, he served as Vice President for Business Development and Customer Relations for Newport News Shipbuilding, where he ran their Washington, D.C. office. He currently serves as pilot or president for the Early and Pioneer Naval Aviators Association, referred to as the Golden Eagles, which serves as a living memorial to early and pioneer naval aviators by advancing the interest of U.S. naval aviation and presenting to a goal toward which young naval aviators may aspire. He currently lives in Virginia Beach, Virginia, with his wife Pat, and we're so glad she is here, and their family. They have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Please join me in recognizing John Mazach.
Thank you, Brad. I very much appreciate you running through my career. It doesn't take too long, but it seemed like a long time when we were living it. Gordon, thanks for your words. I'm going to have to talk a little bit about my thread this morning, but my intent, quite frankly, is not to stay up here very long, but to make sure that all of you know just exactly how honored I am to be here. I will make a few comments about MBA. It's difficult for former students to come up here and talk to people at MBA and say something that hasn't already been said. Because if there's a thread here, it's about what a special place this is. I've had a long time to think about how special it was for me, and so I'm going to talk about some of those thoughts. Some people actually think this place is magical, but the changes over the years, particularly in the infrastructure, which are the ones that you see very quickly, have been literally almost unbelievable. When I was here from 59 to 62, there were 4 buildings here, and the gym was only 5 years old. Now it's going away. We'll hear shortly, I think, and see about the newest additions that are coming here. And I think that all of you should be awfully proud of what has happened here to this campus. But as Brad often says, building young men to be better men, or building boys to be better men, is more important business than that of constructing buildings and the like. The facilities will be here. they'll be utilized, and they'll be of great benefit, I am sure, to both the students and the staff. The ideal of gentleman, scholar, and athlete is well established here, but there are many underlying concepts or threads that comprise the secret sauce of an education at MBA. And I want to mention just a few of those that helped me during my 30-plus years in the Navy, and for that matter, the time that I spent after the Navy in business. I have no idea, actually, how many graduates of MBA have chosen to serve their country and had actually made the military career. I suspect more than I think. But few of them have had more success than one who still serves as an advisory board chairman here at MBA. He's been a close friend of mine since I came to MBA. And I ask myself, and I'll ask you the same thing, what do you think the odds are that I currently live within a half a mile of this person as I stand here 60 years later? JWP, Joseph Wilson Pereira. He was Wilson when he was here, he's Joe now. He was in the class of 60, which those of us in the class of 62 call the dreaded class of 60, because when it comes time to compete with classes to give back to MBA, the class of 60 is very difficult. Very difficult. The picture that you see up there is taken in 1967. I was in flight training in Meridian, Mississippi. Joe, who had graduated with the class of 60, as I just said, was 2 years ahead of me. That's him on the left. Was already in the fleet, and he had flown an airplane to a training base so that those of us who were still learning the trade could look at a real fleet airplane. We often talk about what we took away from MBA, because we do see each other quite often, and the things that helped us navigate through our Navy careers. Our careers were similar and yet different. So let me talk about some of those takeaways very quickly, and then I'm going to get out of here. The first one that comes to my mind is teamwork, or the importance of being on a team. And you might guess that teamwork is the very core of military operations. There's much that goes on by yourself. Coach Tommy Owen taught me about teamwork and the importance of being a team member, both on the football field and off the football field. And I leaned on what he taught me from the very beginning of my career in the Navy. How to deal with fear of the unknown. This happened every day at this place for me, particularly in English class with Mary Helen Lowry. Because I just knew that she was going to call on me to discuss something about what Shakespeare was really trying to say in what he wrote. That same feeling and how it came and how to handle the same came later in my career, but not very much later, 7 years from the time I left here, in a strange place in the sky over a strange country called Vietnam. It was nighttime. I was alone in my trusty A7 with 2 other airplanes in the vicinity, and I realized that people were shooting at me. I thought, well, this cannot be any worse than being in Mary Helen Lowry's class and not knowing what Shakespeare really meant to say. As I became more senior and older, there were other takeaways that became more important, and the teamwork that I just mentioned took on new meaning. I realized that teams needed leaders and teams needed followers. And the leader seemed to be a great choice if you had such a choice. And while the word leadership was never the word of the day at MBA, the things that I found over the years to be important to leaders were indeed things that I was exposed to here at MBA. Leadership has been written on by many, many folks much smarter than I. I would suspect that I've had a chance to try to exercise some of those traits as much as most. And the things that stick in my mind are character. I've heard you say that word 1,000 times here at MBA. Vision, people skills, clear and precise communication, to include listening. There's 4 of the 7. The others are boldness of action, competence, both to solve problems as well as mentor and teach others, and a heart willing to serve. And you heard about service in spades just prior to me standing here, so I won't say any more about that. I tried to use every one of these traits, whether it was in a relatively small aircraft squadron or an air wing, which was made up of several aircraft squadrons, or an aircraft carrier, where all of the aforementioned entities exist, as well as 100,000 tons of steel and 5,000 folks that need somebody to offer some sort of guidance to be effective and to stay safe. An aircraft carrier is probably one of the most complicated machines in the world. And teamwork, complete with leaders and some of the finest young followers that I have ever worked with, is the only way to make it work. And I think that if each of you were to think about your time here at MBA, you'd recognize many of these same takeaways. And I think that you've also learned, whether you're here now or whether you've been here in the past, that this is a very special place. So cherish what you've learned here. Be thankful that you have had the opportunity to spend time here. And remember to give back whenever you can. I thank all of you for being here this morning. God bless you. God bless MBA, and particularly its headmaster. And God bless our great country.
Thanks to both of you, and I appreciate all of you being here to recognize Gordon and John. We're going to finish up now very quickly. I think you heard John Mazach say we're going to show you a little bit. It's about a 1.5-minute video of the new building. I think I probably am going to be thought of as the guy that just liked to build a lot, because I've been fortunate to be in the middle of building a lot at MBA. And as I've been joking recently, I'm really going to be remembered as the guy that changed the spaghetti supper more than anything, because everybody used to bring in sauce and noodles and lettuce, and I thought the health department was going to close this school down. So we took it all over. And then I've been joking with people that I'm really going to be the football headmaster, because I have about 100+ more wins than any other headmaster in NBA's history. But I hope, as John said and Gordon implied, that I'm going to be the guy that thought about that culture and building boys. But this is a spectacular building. It's something we'd planned long before Frank Burkholder's amazing gift of $103 million that was unrestricted, which makes it even more unbelievable. Somebody would give that much money and say, just do with it whatever you want. And so the building is about $103 million, a little bit more actually. But we're hoping to preserve about $50 million of Frank's gift through some other fundraising to create a legacy for him and the school. But this is not a morning of fundraising, that's just to tell you the facts. I'm going to show you this video just so you have some context of this big building we're building outside here. The building's going to be called the Frank Burkholder Wellness Center. It basically has 4 sections to it. It has an events center that I referenced about having a meeting like this next year. It would be like the Curb Center at Belmont, where we'll play basketball games, but will also be used for any kind of events, particularly assemblies, incidentally, because we've outgrown this room. It will have a 40-yard indoor field. It will have a field house on the back of it with 3 basketball gyms. We'll also start playing volleyball back there. And it will have a 2-story fitness center of about 20,000+ square feet. Underneath all that, there'll be a large wrestling area. There will be locker rooms and a training room. And there will be not racquetball, there'll be squash courts, and there will be a golf center. So it is a very large building of 200,000 square feet. To give you context, that's about 80% of the square foot under roof right now on the MBA campus. We were going to build the building where the gym is, and the architects came to me one day and said, this is why you want to listen occasionally to the architects. They said, you're not going to like this idea, but we think we ought to build it on Andrews Field because you'll be able to use your gym the whole time, and it's a blank space, and it's smarter. They're right. So we moved it to Andrews Field. When we tear down the gym, we will build a new Andrews Field on the west end of MBA. One of the really great decisions about that construction plan is that when you look at MBA from Montgomery Bell Avenue, you will see green space as opposed to parking lots and that building. And then the building will be set back. Enough. You can come ask me any questions about it. I know a lot about this building, particularly the design aspects of it. I let the athletic department and others sort of figure out what's right for them. I work on more of the design and planning ideas of the building. Let's run it. You're looking back now at the Wellness Center, and some of you probably noticed we're building new bleachers. Right now, actually, they're tearing down the old ones. So they'll be ready for the next season for football. You might have noticed at the end they went back into that event center, and it did not look like a gym, as you might have seen. It looked more like an event center. But when you saw it earlier, I don't know how closely you looked at it, the scoreboard said we won that game 107 to 106. That was the first entranceway you had into that center there. A group in China put this together, and when we first saw it, when we showed the cafe, they had a few martini glasses. We cut those out. But they do amazing work with these videos. I want to just finish by saying, remember I said it's a wellness center, and part of the thinking on that is twofold. One is the real value of this building is we now have 800 boys, and between now and March, you need a lot of indoor space, and it's great to have that much indoor space, particularly for boys that, let's say, are not the big boys that are going to the weight room all the time, but for any boy to feel comfortable going into that space. That's what's really valuable about it. Secondly, there's a lot of imagery when you may have, as your eyes may have gone up and down the stairs there, you saw a big pixel image of our Long Mountain property. So there will be a lot of, we like to put quotations and images around the campus. There'll be a lot of imagery in there. There'll be some yoga rooms when you walk in. They'll look very different than perhaps the 1960s MBA in some respects. But life's changed, and if I had another hour to talk to you, I'd probably talk about the topic of wellness. I've never seen so many boys, families at risk in terms of psychological issues, and we heard all the phones go off during the talks. Technology has certainly been a culprit. It's not the only one, but it's a culprit in terms of creating a lot of loneliness and issue. We have strict rules around the school about how much you can use technology, but it's complicated, and because it's such a important device, but it's also a way in which it takes away our humanity too much. I'm getting into my talk, so I'm stopping. Let's see, I need to see Andrew Karpos for a second about helping somebody, which is another reason why we're having these events, is nice networking. It's just really good to see everybody this morning. Robert Sawyer, who's right here on my left, will be at the doorway if anybody wants to walk out to the football field. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us for this tradition. Good day.